Right, let's take you now to the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. The new state witness, Captain Elphus Mushwana, has told the court that he did not check if there was any deleted information on the cell phones of those who were in the house. Captain Mushwana was tasked with downloading information from the cell phones. Now, this included assessing if some information had been deleted from the devices. The case has been postponed to Monday. What new witnesses will take the stand?
Now, if there's any information that has been deleted on the device, who will be able to pick that up?
It will depend on the software that is utilized by the XRY or the extracting program.
Yes.
So if it's able to extract deleted data, it will be able to do so. If it can't, it won't be able to.
But was it part of your mandate to check if there's any deleted information?
Yeah, usually we have to check that.
Yes. Were you able to, what was your finding in this regard? Or let's put it this way, did you check for that in this specific matter?
I didn't.
Right, let's now get more of what transpired in court today. I'm joined in studio by Newzroom Africa's Mnisi, who's been following the case. Afternoon, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Interesting developments. I mean, the focus here, the downloading of data, really under the spotlight. Once again, looking at data. Of course, we heard two other witnesses speaking about the extent, what's possible, what's not, and a lot of loopholes here. What did we get from this witness?
It's interesting, Paul, how the state is building its case here. You'll remember, before these analysts or these cell phone downloaders came to court, rather, what we heard prior to their testimony was the testimony of analysts, cell phone analysts from the SAPS who said they got information and had to analyze. This is information that had been downloaded, and they had to go and then look at the links between the people who were inside the house as well as some of the suspects. And you'll remember we heard information about Kelly Khumalo's phone records and how she made contact with accused number 5. Now, what the state was doing here with these witnesses is basically to essentially demonstrate the procedures that were followed in order to get to the point of the cell phone data that was received. Here we're dealing with people who were requested to download cell phone data from the cell phones of some of the people who were in the house, and those include Kelly Khumalo, Zandi Khumalo, Longwe Twala, Tumelo Madlala. They also got a phone, Senzo Meyiwa's phone, and what they're basically detailing is the request. The request was simple: we need downloads, download data, and then hand it back to us. And they say that's exactly what they were able to do. On one of Zandi's phones, the N8, they weren't able to essentially download the data. So what the witness says is that they took out the SIM card and were able to analyze the data from the SIM card. You'll remember there was also the issue around Senzo Meyiwa's phone. Yeah. Were they able to download data from Senzo Meyiwa's phone? And well, the witness says he was not able to download Meyiwa's phone, and that's because it had a PIN and that was still active. It was an iPhone, so they weren't able to download and get a sense of what is contained on Senzo Meyiwa's phone. It's important, because you'll remember there were also talks about, how a SIM swap was conducted the day after, he died. Therefore, some of the things that were needed, or the data that was needed to kind of check what was happening at the time, would have really been important. You'll also remember that the state witnesses, Colonel Steyn in particular, had also testified about Kelly Khumalo's phone that had been rebooted, essentially wiped out. Certain information wiped out at a particular time following Senzo Meyiwa's murder. And this witness was asked today whether he did download from Kelly Khumalo's phone, and he did check whether he was able to retrieve the deleted information. And well, he said he did not get to download or recapture the data that was deleted from Kelly's phone.
Yeah, the link's really, really important, especially as we heard that the person who had Senzo Meyiwa's ID was Kelly Khumalo, and that then would mean that she would be the only one who would be able to do a SIM swap because you did an ID. So the links sort of coming together here. What did accused number 3 have to say about downloading data?
So, it's important looking at the manner in which we've heard the evidence, or the evidence that has come out so far in court, because you'll remember that we've heard evidence around his phone having pictures of him with dreadlocks, with stacks of money, with firearms, like high-caliber firearms. And that particular information was gotten or was received from his cell phone. Where did that cell phone come from, and how did the police get a hold of that cell phone? You'll remember in 2015 he was arrested for being in possession of an illegal firearm and ammunition. This is now a totally unrelated case in Cleveland. So what they did then, police were then asked to download the data from his phone, and this is where they got all of that information. So the person who downloaded the data from his phone came to testify today, saying that, well, I got this request to retrieve data from this particular phone, and essentially that is what I was able to do. So it essentially paints a picture of the procedures that were followed here. And I remember Advocate Mshwana really trying to probe around how these cell phones were stored, in what bags they were stored. If you remember, there were quite a number of cell phones, because the first witness, Mushwana, says he received about 6 phones and had to place them in different bags, but there was one bag that had 4 cell phones. And Advocate Mshwana asking, is that the way of preserving the evidence, and how did you make sure that there wasn't any tampering of that particular evidence? And he says, well, the information that is contained in the phone is encrypted, so nobody can really tamper with it. So tampering with it, he uses the word impossible. So in for example, cell phones, you can store them in large numbers.
Interesting developments, of course, what we saw transpiring throughout the course of this week. Linda Mnisi giving us a sense of what happened in court, and of course how the pieces are coming together. Of course, crucial questions will be around how technology has advanced since then, something that we will continue to monitor.